This is TVA by Jenna, a podcast about real human issues brought to you by Dark Crazy Dark
This is TVA My Dinner. My name is Sean, and I'm here with Lynn.
Hey, good morning. So if you want to talk about beefing it, did we want to move on to the turning?
The turning, yeah. Because I do think this bears discussion. I wasn't as critical as other people have been towards this movie, but
because it was terrible. It's a terrible, terrible movie. But I think, from what I remember, it seems like the script got butchers up a bit. Like they had reshoots and that sort of thing. The characters weren't clearly delineated, especially Miles' character. They changed him a few times, and that you can tell when you're watching it. Like his character sort of sways back and forth wildly.
Which in some ways can work because he's around 13 or 14 now, and so the inconsistency of his character matches with how they've aged that character.
Yeah, they aged the character up to an age where it's actually appropriate that he's being inappropriate. And
I think it's good because he's a good actor, but he's not likable at all.
No,
so
they could have. They could have made him the main villain and made him really creepy, but then the main villain is her mental illness.
Well, the thing there too is Quint doesn't appear at all. He's mentioned, but that isn't. And in a way, again, if we were going to explore this from the idea of this kid dealing with this trauma, that would have been interesting. But we don't commit to it enough, even as a metaphor, to really. I
just felt like it was a mess of a movie. Like they weren't quite sure what they were trying to say. I mean, I guess at least it had a through line. It was like the whole she had a mental illness, and that's sort of how it ends. Is
at least they established that, and when the movie ends very awkwardly, you at least this is sort of homage to the book. The book also ended very awkwardly and with no resolution.
But there was a lot of plot threads that just didn't really go anywhere. Like, Flora doesn't want to leave. Why?
Well, are we supposed to think that they're ghosts? Because that's what they're getting at. Like she is traumatized because she saw her parents killed right outside the gate, and that's what we're supposed to know in the text of the story as to why she's terrified to leave the grounds.
What killed the parents?
Everybody else is... What's that?
What killed the parents? How did the parents
die?
Car
wreck, I think. I think they died in a car wreck. Right outside.
Because there was that little bit at the beginning where the lady's running from the guy, and then there's the thing, and then she smashes. She gets out of the car, and there's someone behind her?
Yeah, I
was confused.
I don't really understand how that plays in with what we see happens to the characters later on, because I thought she got strangled upstairs, and wasn't that the same character?
Yeah, like it
really
led
to believe that she was basically assaulted and strangled in the upstairs bedroom, and I guess he just dumped her in the lake at that point.
Was that was those two characters? But then,
how many governesses have you two had?
Yeah, and then what happened with the parents? They just had a crash. Were they ghosts involved in that one?
Well, it's a weird place to have a crash because it's right outside their gate. And they're not on highway or anything. It's like, who the hell was the other driver?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of stuff in that movie. They were trying to go with something, but they never really quite decided where they were going with it. There was some creepy things. They tried to use the Miles character aged up as this creepy person, but it never quite lands. Sometimes he's just a moody teenager. And he does that well as well.
The creepy visuals work. There's a lot of cool visual elements that I think work really well in the movie. Like, this movie is spooky in places. It does have some good spooky moments.
I didn't find it spooky.
But as like Amanda the Jedi was pointing out, it's like, if we're supposed to think this is happening in her mind because she's going crazy, why are there these things that are shown to the audience that she doesn't see in the context of the story? Like when the mannequin's head turns after she's left the room, we see that, but that happens in the objective point of view.
But that's ghost movie stuff. That's all all the creepy movies do that when the demon appears behind you after you've walked away from the mirror. It's like, what was the demon doing? Is he just there to scare the audience?
But at least we're being told that the ghost is real because we're the only ones who saw it.
They should have.
But if it's all through her viewpoint, then that
they should have gone one way or the other. Is the house haunted?
Yeah.
Or is she crazy? Or is the something in the house bringing out something in her?
Like The Village always bothered me because there are certain ways that they shot scenes of that movie that were telling us as the audience they were monsters.
They were lying to us,
was
not to
not
each
from
other.
the point of view of characters. And then later on they're like, but there's not monsters. It's like, but you shot monster point of view scenes.
But there's
with
not monsters. But maybe
noises.
there is one. But no, he's not a monster.
It's like, well, maybe that was a character POV. Imagining a POV of a monster in the woods with soundtrack? That's such a cheat.
But also in The Turning, that little girl was never interesting either. Like, she was also, like, super precocious and irritating. So, I found it hard to bond with that character.
The problem with making a movie, as opposed to trying to flesh out as a TV show, is they don't have time to have enough scenes to show why she likes them. Because in the context of a movie, she's like, I'm kind of on the fence about this job. It's like, then you should quit because everything is telling you to leave. Like, at the very beginning, the girl says, will you promise never to leave? Like, maybe I shouldn't make, like, really open-ended promises the first second we meet.
Especially not to a small child who's been, super traumatized by stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to make you feel bad in this, our first moment, but I'm not promising shit because I just got here.
Sorry, little girl.
I could also argue that you're in breach because I didn't make you explicitly promise not to torture me and try to scare me to death every minute that I was here, but it was implicit in my agreement to never leave you. That wasn't an agreement to let you be as horrible to me as you would like while I'm here.
Well, at least they got for her the sense of isolation because she didn't even have the housekeeper to fall back on. She was just a horrible human being for no reason.
Mm-hmm. The sense of isolation is definitely there. It's just she can go at any time and it's no skin off anyone's nose. Like, if I leave these kids, like, I'm leaving them how I found them. They're not worse off. I've been here a day. And they didn't, and I don't know, I guess the mother thing did give her a good enough backstory, like, as opposed to the TV show. That's a solid reason for her to want to stay. Like, look, I was raised by a crazy mother who was, neglectful of me, and I know what it's like for people to have no parents, and if I can help someone out who's in that situation, especially a small child, then that's
that element's in the
art.
TV show as well.
Yeah, I just don't think it works as well because her guilt isn't about abandoned children. Her guilt is about the fact that she's not a heterosexual woman, and that's
they
not
don't
something
delve
she should
into
have
it
to feel
enough.
guilty about.
Like they mention that her mum's an alcoholic, and we see her mum in one scene, and she seems okay, but
yeah,
we don't ever really delve into
pay
it.
off there. I think The Turning does pay it off well enough that it's a trope when someone has like a fully demented parent. Like, you don't usually have, that's the vocabulary of movies, so we understand that she is suffering from mental illness. She has to be like painting at the bottom of an empty swimming pool. That's there, but she's not supposed to be in it. That's a weird facility anyway.
Yeah, like what sort of facility has a pool like that? Well, obviously, I can understand that they wouldn't keep the pool filled up, but wouldn't they keep it locked off so that
Just
people
lock
can't
the
just fall
pool
into
room.
it?
Yeah, I just assumed that you had converted it into a therapy area, but then they come and go, Mom, they really want you to get out of the empty pool. It's like, why is that my responsibility? They really should keep me out of these areas. Why was I able to bring an easel and 80 pounds of art equipment down into the bottom of this pool?
Like, she's got dirty hands. She's obviously crazy.
Yeah, exactly. She's furiously drawing with her hands.
And how does the mum know where to send those pictures?
I assume that she just says she wants to send to her daughter because she must have to leave some kind of address with the facility. Like, they have to be able to get hold of her in case there's a medical emergency. But, that's probably not the critical point where the story breaks down.
No, it's just one of the other many nitpicky things. I found it really hard to focus on the story because it was directionless for most of the movie. Because the end point was just that she was having a mental breakdown. 50 minutes in, I was still like, what is the point of this? Is the point just seeing how she deals with these kids? There was no clear direction for where the story was going.
Yeah, because the idea that the kids are like these entitled rich kids is kind of a fun idea to explore too, where she's like way out of her element. But it doesn't really pay off because on the one hand, that the like, house cleaning lady, I don't know who she is, but she's just keeps telling everybody what to do. It's like, aren't you the maid? Like, I'm pretty sure I was called in to tell you guys what to do. And then at one
Yeah,
point
it's a
she
weird
says,
power dynamic.
you need to take charge. It's like, well, then you need to step up off me because you undermine every fucking thing I say.
She's like, do you want to go for a trip outside the house? Yes, I do. No, she can't go. Oh, I can't go. Like,
No, she'll die if she ever leaves the house. It's like, well, it's no wonder these kids are so messed up. That one killed a pigeon, and that's the nicest thing he's done.
yeah, and then it just sort of ends with that weird. No, she's just been crazy all along.
Yeah, it's
Business that-
unfortunate because it's not a terrible movie, and compared
Well,
to the book, it's not terrible.
Yeah, I think that was the worst thing, that they didn't ever resolve it into anything apart from no, she just mad. She's
Yeah,
And it's also that it's that movie kind of like, it's not an actual mental illness that she has. She just mad. Like movie crazy, where it doesn't.
yeah, like movie demented. Like I'm gonna be drawn on the walls with my hands.
Yeah, for no
Like,
reason.
I'm gonna
Oh
end
well,
up in that
there's,
same pool.
maybe there's a genetic component to her, whatever. But it's just.
Well, the thing is, are you saying that your mother has schizophrenia and you may have it too? Because that's a real thing. Like that's something you could play with. But
Usually, it wouldn't. You would know by the age that she is in the movie.
well, and what are you trying to say too with the drawings? Are you saying that your mother sent you a drawing that you interpreted into a fantasy of escaping the house? Are you saying that your mother in her dementia developed some kind of prophetic ability to predict what you were either going to fantasize about doing or actually happened? Or because what's your mother like? Even if she is like demented, what is her end game? And like, I've got to get these drawings to my daughter right away. Like,
She has to know. She has to
what are they
know
supposed to
that there's a black
communicate?
squiggle here. Black squiggle is really important.
They're like, sorry, that's not important. I wrote your nuts on the back. I meant for you to flip that.
It's my recipe for caramel fig cake.
Yeah, I'm crazy. Nothing I say necessarily should be something you should follow.
Yeah. But I love how also in movies the treatment for these crazy people is just, we'll just leave them in a pool somewhere.
Just leave them till it.
Like
there's-
as though
there's some reality
schizophrenia
there.
isn't a legit condition that can be treated and that people can live quite normal lives. Like movie crazy is the worst. It's just, it's such a
yeah,
nebulous.
no treatment
This
or
person's
or medication, nothing.
no,
like,
you're mad now,
mad.
and you just perform the erratic mad person behaviors that
It's
we have
better than it used
prescribed
to
as
be.
movie makers.
If you go to the 70s, any movie where there's an insane asylum, it's just an acting troupe making an improv meal out of prop work. They just set them loose and they're just like,
We're
you know,
crazy.
whatever, go with whatever. So whatever.
Where is the
props are
scenery? We want to
available,
eat it. Let me chew the
they're
scenery.
literally eating the scenery. Like, just that's the worst. It's like, good God, man.
Yeah.
Have a little respect for people who actually have like mental disorders. So
And I
it's
could
not
have
as
respected that
prevalent, but still.
if that was what they were trying to, and that's probably what the story should have, and it could have been about in both cases. In the is legitimate depression or schizophrenia or any of those things could be talked about properly, but they never are. It's just like because I'm seeing ghosts.
Yeah, because they properly set up that the mother, has that mental illness, and in a way they set up that she doesn't want to be like her mother, like she wants to care for these kids. But it's never established that she has some kind of ongoing fear, like some symptoms have presented that she's worried that she could have schizophrenia or some kind of or some kind of hallucinatory disorder. Like,
Yeah.
so it does kind of come out of nowhere, even though they did set up those elements. They try about, like, near the end, the old lady says, well, hope you're not crazy too. So just to sort of bring it home in the third act, if we're not following.
And that's
the
why it
bouncing
feels like
ball.
it's an incomplete story, because you've got the elements there of a ghost story, and they just abandon that for no, she's just crazy. So you're like, well, I actually enjoyed the bits with the ghost story and the whatever's going on there, and then they just dropped a lap in favor of crazy lady.
Yeah, I might have almost liked it if he'd gone full turn of the screw and she went crazy and strangled that kid at the end. Like, that might have been, if you were committing to
At
this,
least it
that
would have
might
been an ending.
a bolder choice. Yeah, and
That would have been a much better choice.
Would have been something. Yeah.
What if she's haunted by this ghost of this crazy guy, and then she wakes up at the end and she's killed this kid? That's an ending.
Yeah.
It's quite an ending.
I could get behind that.
Yeah, just murder that kid. He's annoying anyway.
Because I think we've talked about The Lodge before, but...
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you have?
But it's the same concept.
It's the
I didn't know we were doing this
concept.
today. We were supposed to be talking about Chainsaw Massacre, and I was all ready for chainsawing.
Well, that's true. But The Lodge just kind of came up organically while we were talking about it anyway, because I hadn't read The Turn of the Screw when I first saw the movie. But, you know, now you're like, well, this isn't an intentional adaptation, but this is probably the best movie version of The Turn of the Screw, because that's exactly what the story is.
Because again, it's not her kids.
And the isolation, everything. Not her kids. Total dipshit dad leaves them in that situation, fully ill-advised. It's horrible that he would do that to any of them. And then they are fully isolated. They're stuck in a snowstorm together, and it's another one of those It kids. Is the son is like the main kid from It. So they just keep spinning all these kids off. Every kid from It has been a creepy weirdo in some movie, because
nobody knows what to do with kids in movies. They're either creepy weirdos or they're just...
Well, if you can get them to be proper creepy weirdos, it works. What was it? The Prodigy, I think, was the one that had the little brother being possessed by the demon.
Nobody does it like Macaulay Culkin. Macaulay Culkin. He was the best.
That was probably the best.
Good Son. That was a creepy kid movie that actually worked really well.
And Elijah Wood, but
yeah,
they played it off really well with each other. Elijah Wood was always a really good child actor.
Well, because the other person involved was a kid, so it wasn't just like an adult going, is this kid creepy? It was like an actual other kid going, this kid's creepy.
Well, that's why when it's kids, it's so funny they don't try to do a version of The Turn of the Screw that just tells it from the kid's point of view, because that's the sense of isolation. Like, no one will believe me. Like, I see ghosts everywhere, but I'm just a little kid. And especially if your parents have just died, that's a missed opportunity. If you want to adapt that story, that's the viewpoint.
Imagine if you're trying to tell the governess, like, no, the ghosts are doing this one thing, and she's just like, no, I need to strangle this kid, he's evil.
Exactly. Tell
like,
it
she
from
knows
the
something's
little girl's
going
point
on,
of view. She's like, this situation went from bad to worse.
Man, there's ghosts here, and now this lady's wigging out.
Yeah, we were better off on our own. But if someone wanted to revisit Turn of the Screw yet again, that might be the way to look at it. But The Lodge, yeah, if you're interested, yeah, you watch The Lodge. The Lodge is a really good one, and it's full creepy, and it hits every mark that this story should hit, even the ones that the book doesn't hit. It's just solidly done. And it's
I think
creepy.
that's maybe the problem with so many of these adaptations, is because they feel they have to, if they're adapting something, they feel like they have to do something new with it, or I have to make my own statement or something like that. And rather than doing that, do what they did with the first Hill House, is just like, okay, I've gotten some themes and stuff from the movie, I want to make my own story. From the original book, I want to make my own story. Do something like The Lodge. If you want to do something that's sort of about kids and madness and whatnot, don't do Turn of the Screw. Do your own thing.
Yeah. I guess if you're not connecting with the material, because I think it was probably Amanda the Jedi did a video about it, and she was talking about the production of The Turning, but I think Steven Spielberg or somebody was one of the producers on this thing for a while, and they ended up with a script they didn't like at the exact last minute and dropped it. But so it all got handed off, at the last minute to the director who ended up making it, and I guess this was just her version of her best version of what to do with that production. But that's probably where a lot of these things go awry, is they end up, I know with adaptations that happens, where you get some stable studio writer and they're just like, we're doing this, and they hand them the source material and they're like, well, I don't like this at all, I'll just do something else. And that's why, like, why are so many adaptations garbage?
I think it's a big problem in Hollywood, is how many hands the scripts pass through before it gets to the final stage, which may be why a lot of the things that we really like, when you've got the same writer-director and he has an idea and he can make the vision happen. And it's not messed up by 15 different people going, but I think this would be nice right here, or I want to tell this part of this story. We need a giant spider in this movie, and I'm going to get it in there.
Well, and that's where, even with those sort of writer-director auteurs, sometimes if they get more and more involved with more money, especially, but if they get more and more involved in the studio system, they'll get influenced. Even if they are still the driving force behind a story, they'll get so many notes and get so many different influences on their process that it can confuse them. Like it.
Well, you see that
you take
between
for
the
granted
between the Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies. Lindsay Ellis's amazing, almost award-winning series on the Hobbit, and how what went wrong, and there was a lot of things that went wrong in that, but the amount of studio interference that they got on the Hobbit that they didn't get from when they were doing Lord of the Rings, because nobody in the studio really cared as much when they were doing Lord of the Rings. They were just a little project, and they sort of got behind them. But when they were doing the Hobbit, it was like, no, you have to put a love triangle in there, and you have to do this and that, and kind of ruined it.
There's a real Rise of Skywalker aspect to that, what happened with those movies too, because you end up with the original director and everyone thinks, well, good, this is a guy who, has some concept for where to take it, but no, he didn't care about doing this to begin with. It was developed from the outset by somebody else, and then at the 11th hour they hand it back to him, and instead of saying, well, the smart thing is to run with what's already been set up because it's 90% done, they're like, no, I'm my own creator, I'll start over from scratch with 5 minutes on the clock.
Yeah.
And they end up with garbage. Well, in his case, you can't make three-hour movies with 5 minutes on the clock. But for J.J. Abrams' sake in Rise of Skywalker, you can't make a single movie that way. It's like you have to.
It's always difficult when
go with what you're given a little.
I mean, the same sort of problem that was with the Justice League, where it's like, give the movie to someone else in the last minute, and he just Joss went back and did all these reshoots and changed the tone of some of it.
Instead of tweaking it, I'm just going to remake the whole thing. It's like, you can't remake a movie this size that fast. It'd turn out, that's where all these garbage movies come from. They come, in a lot of cases, from good intentions, but why do that to yourself? You're ensuring that you're going to put out an inferior product.
And studios keep doing it to people, like firing people halfway through the movie and bringing in someone else, and fixing or taking the edit away from the director and that sort of thing all the time. And it always ends up making rubbish. And they're like, what could we have done differently?
Because they don't understand creative product. They understand product.
Yeah.
Because that's what they want. And from their perspective, it usually generally works. They're like, at this point, we're just trying to save this thing because it may not get released at all. I need a movie I can put out so that we can get some return on investment.
It's Cleopatra, this bitch, and just edit it.
Well, and that's what ends up happening with the Justice League. They're like, look, Justice League is going to make $600 million worldwide, and that $600 million we wouldn't have if we just
But they didn't even need to.
Like,
it was Justice League. It was going to make that money anyway. They could have just handed the camera to Aquaman.
That's the whole problem with the process, is there isn't. You need to, what Marvel got lucky at was having a guy who understands the creative process, who's at the producer level. Like, Kevin Feige is not the creative force behind all these movies, but he understands from a string of failures how to mess it up. And he's like, we have to have a certain consistency in how we're developing this story, and we have to have someone who's going to do that, who has enough power to make it something that's going to work. And even then, they come pretty close on some of these movies. to disaster in
Yeah.
having to do switchovers of creative teams.
Yeah, like with the Ant-Man business. I still would have been interested to see what he would have done with Ant-Man. Edgar
I'm
Wright.
curious. I'm not as big a fan of Edgar Wright as some other people, so it's not as big a missed opportunity to me, because I like his movies, but I think Scott Pilgrim may be his best movie. I'd like to see the Scott Pilgrim version of Ant-Man.
Well, for me, it's just
if that's
like
your take on comic book movies, then I do regret that I didn't
what
see that.
after watching like Guardians of the Galaxy, what could he have done? What was his creative vision that was so different to what they wanted that it was just not usable at all?
Yeah, and that tells me that there's probably just something in the larger universe that they were wanting in terms of positioning that character. And that's
Yeah,
where
but
you
at
end
some
up with,
point,
like a
like,
Doctor Strange, where
was he just
you
too
just have
difficult to work
kind
with?
of
Like, would he
nothing.
just refuse to actually put the two
Well, then
things
you
together?
have to wonder that too, like with Ed Norton, like, or is the studio not to blame here? Maybe this guy just
Guess we don't really know.
can't be worked with. Yeah, or maybe nobody's to blame. These things just happen.
Yeah. Sometimes, even though
it's-
Mummy and Daddy love each other very much, they just can't
Yeah,
make it
it's
work.
nobody's fault. Maybe it's your fault, the viewer. That's what ends up happening. The Quibi defense. It's like it's the fault of the millions and millions and millions of people who didn't have any interest in our product.
Listen, I had a lot of interest in watching that sex doll show, but
It's Quibi just cracks me up. There's so many videos on YouTube you can watch now that it's folded, where people are just analyzing, and the more you hear about what they were doing with Quibi, the more baffling it becomes.
like,
as to the
no,
model.
we will not allow you to play it on a TV because we want you to watch it on your phone. Like, not even going to
Okay,
give people the
so-
option. No!
So are you counting on viral marketing? No, you will not be able to share even so much as a still image or a screenshot of this online. Like, really?
Yeah, it was just terrible.
You'll have to have Quibi to know about Quibi?
And that Hunt show that they were making just looked so bad. Like that. Who was it? Was it?
Who was in that one?
It was the Australian actor who's trying to do it. Was it Hemsworth or one of them? One of the Chris's or something? And he was trying to do
Oh, didn't he do The Most Dangerous Game? Wasn't that his?
whatever. But the accent I was watching the trailer and the accent is so bad, and I'm like, dude, I've heard you do accents before. Why are you struggling so hard?
What's he supposed to be in the movie?
He's supposed to be
it was
American.
already. Oh, okay. That's weird. He's done an American accent in movies before. I've seen him in The Expendables.
Like there was just a moment when he's like, "What do you want me to do?" And I'm like, "Oh, not that."
Well, maybe they were literally phoning it in.
Well,
Get it, Quibi?
they
You
phoned
guys
it
can
out
have
now.
that one for your platform.
Hung up now. Hung up the platform.
Yeah, exactly. Click. Couldn't even sell it. Couldn't even sell it for parts.
Yeah, no, just all gone.
You know why they couldn't sell it for parts? And I don't blame them for this aspect of it, but creators own their own content. So the only thing
Yeah.
that was worth anything on Quibi they didn't own.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
probably could have sold it at least for the IP that you had bought, but all those people, and good for them, can take it to someplace else.
Yeah, it'll be
they just
interesting
spend
to
all the
see where
time
those shows start
shooting
popping
and
up
cutting
now.
it in vertical, but other than that, we're not getting that time back. But at least we can release it.
Hmm.
That's weird.
Possibly YouTube. Maybe Netflix will pick up some of them.
If they're good, that's what happened with Cobra Kai. Like Cobra Kai was the most successful show that no one had seen by official means. Like everyone's like, oh, it's a good show. It's like not a soul has YouTube Red. Like, how are you all seeing this? It's like, I can't say, but it's a great show.
Totally legal.
So-
It was totally legal.
When they finally, like, are you guys sharing a login or something? Yeah, probably that. We're all sharing a single login to YouTube Red so we can watch Cobra Kai. People were literally just getting the free trial and watching a season of Cobra Kai and then canceling it.
Well, there's no other reason you'd watch. You have it
Oh,
YouTube Red. There's nothing else on there.
and so now it's on Netflix and people are going nuts for it, and it's a big successful show. And that's the one saving grace for most of these.
Hmm.
And
So-
Steven Spielberg can go to some streamer going, I want to show that people can only watch in the dark. It's like,
It's so strange. Strange. They have to be strange ideas of like, I know this is going to work because kids these days watch things on the bus.
What people love is unnecessary restriction on viewing.
Yeah.
That's what the kids are really into.
Yeah, so we need to not send it to the TV because rules. And we need to not allow you to share it because rules. It's going to make everyone happier.
Okay. Well, I'll probably cut that out anyway. Done talking about Quibi so much.
Rant about Quibi.
Punching down now. They're already over. I'm still mad about them. I never had Quibi. It didn't hurt me any.
Quibi, why?
Yeah. We got to stomp them hard so no one ever tries to do this again. It's like, well, they spent $2 billion. I think if that doesn't teach them the lesson, then nothing will.
Oh, so many people lost so much money.
Well, it's bad investment.
Yeah, bad investment. Don't make bad investments, kids.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Be careful where you spend your billions of dollars.
Certainly don't buy a bad nanny for your children who's just going to murder them.
Yeah, do you guys want Quibbies? Because this is how we get Quibbies. All right.
It's going to become the new word for shit things happening.
Quibby.
They've
Quibbied that. Yeah, sorry, I quibbied it. Oh, man. So that was cool. That's fun. I'm glad I got to read Turn of the Screw in all this. I guess that was
it's one of those texts that you need to have under your belt if you're going to do haunted house stuff.
Yeah, I want to see. Yeah, we'll have to work our way to like House of Seven Gables or one of those other classic ones. Because I haven't read that either.
No, neither have I. Be the next on our book club list.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what the haunting people do. Like whatever they pick for the next one.
Yeah. I'm interested to see where they go. Hopefully they learned some lessons from this one.
Yeah, I want to see another one. Yeah, there's hopefully, like, we've given you some. I don't watch this show, but give you something to think about. I'm sure we're not the only ones making these same points.
No.
So cool. Yeah.
Cool. We're done. Good.
We did some more horror stuff. Greg will be so happy. We've been doing so much Star Wars. It's always nice to stop and talk about horror things. That's the dichotomy of our shows now.
It's just the horror episodes and the Star Wars episodes.
That's all that we have right now. So we got that for you.
Probably wants to talk
Star
about
Wars
politics.
stuff. Go to Marvel Age Star Wars on YouTube. Check those out. Brooks and I talk a lot about old Marvel comics, but lately we've been doing a week-for-week review of Mandalorian episodes, so you can see
and then
those
there's like one random video of you guys exploring the attic, which is great.
Just as a bonus feature. Yeah, I want to take and recut some of those others because there's hours and hours of us just playing around in my parents' attic. So
YouTube likes dogs, so put more of the dogs in it.
Yeah, I had to leave him. I cut almost everything out of the original cut of that video. I was like, man, I was like, God, I sucked so bad at making videos back then. It's no wonder.
These days everything has to be quick.
But just stay on what you say you're going to talk about. That shouldn't have taken 14 years to learn as a lesson. but it did. So anyway, check that stuff out. We're still on Facebook as TV Ate My Dinner. We're also on Facebook as Expanding Universe if you want to check us out. That's more of our Star Wars related content there. We're also on Twitter, but no one ever goes to Twitter. So
I'm on Twitter, but I'm not on Facebook.
There. Well, there you go. So you can tweet to us. Is that what
Facebook is a...
Like you don't tweet to each other. So just tweet. Just tweet me.
Scum and villainy. Just tweet me. I'm funny on Twitter. When I tweet.
Yeah,
usually I just retweet stuff.
Follow Lynn. What's your handle on Twitter?
I don't know.
Well, how is people supposed to...
Just find me. I'm the one retweeting all the TVAMD
Just
stuff.
Just look for the Australian woman.
Just look for me. I'm Crazel Cat or Lynn Star or something like that. I don't remember.
Well,
the handle. What are you talking about?
What is your name on the tweeter?
I'll find my tweet.
We'll have that for you in a future episode. If you're interested in tweeting Lynn.
Yeah, no, just search for the funniest person on Twitter. That'll be me.
But yeah, so check us out on all that stuff, and we'll be back later on. We are creeping towards our episode number 300 here on.
How long have we been doing this?
since 2007 is when the show started. You came in a year or two after that, I think. Not too long after we started out.
It was within the first 6 months, I think.
I'll have to look at when your first episode was.
Oh, my first episode was
then,
like a year or two in.
Yeah, because you didn't have the technology. Technology is making a lot more things possible for us. We can actually do video much more economically
Actually
now,
see each other now, whereas before it was like...
Yeah.
With the early days, I had to go up to the uni and download an episode, take it home and play it. And that took like 2 hours to download that. And now I can just stream them all from my phone.
Yeah. Now you can just click it on your phone, people. See, we used to have to work for it, for our podcast.
Can't get away. You're there all the time.
Exactly. Like my mom will say, "When is your show on?" It's like, it's always there. It's always
I
there.
tell my
Every
mum
show.
about this show.
Hundreds of hours of entertainment are all there for you. And now with an increasing amount of video entertainment. So there you go. That's how you know that's the future.
We've got
finally on
ring
television.
lights and everything.
It's cool, yeah. Like still working out the kinks on the full setup, but yeah, we're getting there for you. We're working on it.
Feel free to give us
so-
feedback. Tell us how rubbish we are or whatever.
What would you like to see? Now that we're cranking out so much more material than we have. But like the last 2 months, we put out more than we put out in the last 2 years.
Quarantine's been good for us?
Productive. Some of the things were episodes that were recorded over the last 2 years, but let's not split those hairs. So yeah, check us out. We will be back with more entertainment. Until we are, my name is Sean.
I'm Lynn.
We'll see you next time.